Welcome to the Select Board's meeting of Wednesday, September 4th, 2024. Please join the board in the pledge to the flag. Mr. Canty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight's meeting of the Select Board was scheduled to be taking place in a hybrid format, although we have been told that there is a problem with some of the technology, so we do not expect to have a Zoom component for this particular meeting. However, for most Select Board meetings, members of the public that wish to participate may do so here at Town Hall at 26 Court Street, and you still can do that tonight. You can also do so by joining us over the Zoom webinar platform that is on the agenda that is always posted on the website. Tonight, in lieu of Zoom, there will be a YouTube Live option, so people can still watch us on YouTube online on their computer, tablets, other devices. You can also watch us on the local scene on Comcast Channel 9 or Verizon Channel 47, whatever your pleasure is. We also remind members of the public that pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of the Select Board after notifying the chair, subject to reasonable requirements of the chair so as to not interfere with the conduct of the meeting. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any recordings. We are currently aware of the recording taking place by the local scene. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Canty. Moving right along to the licenses and administrative notes. We can take them together or we can take them separate. Wish of the board.
If there are no questions or requests to take anything separate, I would make a motion to approve the listed licenses, permits, and administrative notes as a group. Second.
Motion by Mr. Canty, second by Mr. Golden. Discussion. Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Bledsoe?
Yes.
Mr. Golden?
Yes.
Unanimous. Thank you. First agenda item is 10 Oak Street. In the last meeting, we all had a lengthy discussion, and I believe that Mr. Peck and Mr. Malaguti and some of the building committee toured Oak Street today, so I'd like to ask that you come up and tell us what you saw and what your thoughts are.
I'll be glad to, and thank you for this opportunity. And David can come up and amplify things, and Chris from the Housing Authority is also here. Yes, indeed. Last week you challenged us to dive as deep as we can in a short notice, and both visit the facility and essentially recommend to the Select Board whether the $140,000 requested is justified. Is it enough? Is it too much? But we wanted to understand the project. That was our immediate challenge. Chris from the Housing Authority sent out a good bit of backup immediately after the meeting. One of our members, Joe Lally, who's out of town, went to visit last week before he went out of town, and I don't know how long he was with you, Chris, but he walked it up and down. And today we had a posted meeting at 11 o'clock there. We had a quorum, including Joe Lally by Zoom, because it was a hybrid meeting. But Al DiNardo was there. A neighbor named Phyllis Ferreira was there. And so we had a nice public meeting where our building committee in particular challenged individual lines. We also toured, and I will say there were parts of the project that were incomplete, but the Housing Authority said those were items that they would be working on. Landscaping in particular was one. Cleaning up the basement was another. So members of our committee were sort of disappointed in certain things, but we challenged the Housing Authority. How are you going to finish that? The units themselves are quite nice. It's almost done. The ductwork isn't hooked up. But then we went into what is the background for the $140,000 request. And we learned a couple things. One was that some of it has already been paid. So the water bill portion of this and the asbestos removal was paid either a year ago or 3 years ago. So the outstanding invoices that we saw were less than the 140. It was for the sewer and some of the fire alarm. However, the request for the water bill and the other essentially was to replenish the contingency to cover the balance of miscellaneous costs that were extant. So, as I say, we learned more, but fundamentally we came to, I'll say, a reluctant vote, 4-1, to support the $140,000 application from the Housing Authority. I did it reluctantly because, again, there was the disappointment of some areas that are incomplete. We would also say we don't know the exact amount of the final cost, and I'll get to one of our recommendations after that. And we don't know because there may be 1 or 2 more days of work in the street to work on the sewer system. So the numbers you have here also include an estimated contingency, small, but an estimated contingency to cover at least 1 more day, possibly 2 more days of unknowns. The inspectors have not been, all the inspectors have not been through, so there may be, there almost always are issues that come up when an inspector tours and says, you need to do this and that. But we are convinced that at least for the recommendation to you guys, that we are supportive of the $140,000, not more than that. We also strongly believe that this project needs an audit at the end of the project and see exactly, where things went and what happened. And I would add to it, we didn't specifically vote it today, but projects like this needed owner's project manager, period. Because some of these issues, when we learned, David, I'm speaking for myself here too, but when we learned that some of these invoices had actually been paid a year ago or 3 years ago, a good project manager would be keeping you current on your budget. Are you staying within your budget or not? Or some of these expenses might challenge your budget. They would be able to inform your committee, your building committee and others, that you're within the budget or you need to make adjustments. So knowing that there was some information like that, at least a year old or more, as well as just watching over a project, having a budget that includes, this is going ahead, a budget that includes a project manager is an important aspect of any time you're building something or renovating something. So Chris acknowledged that the Housing Authority had been, did not include enough contingencies. It's sort of each time they were looking at the budget. And again, you can come up and confirm that, Chris, but that's, I'd say, the 2 major messages that I'm taking from this is you always have to have enough contingency, especially at the beginning of a project, but as you're partway through a project, you really need to understand your contingencies. And the second is a project manager. That if you had those 2 things in place at the beginning of this project, you wouldn't be here. Sandy Strassel and another Rachel St. Croix, if that's how it's pronounced, were also there, and Sandy repeated for our group that you've got to have adequate contingencies, certainly at the beginning of a project, but even if you do mid-project adjustments, maintain that contingency all the way through the project and be parsimonious with it. So as I said, our vote was 4-1. We also, as we talked among ourselves, say, do it now. Don't wait till even the fall town meeting, but certainly don't let it sit empty for 6 months. And we also, again, not part of our vote, but the consensus, do not open the warrant because that would just open up many other things coming in too close to town meeting. So hopefully work with your finance director, who is a genius, I think, and your available funding, and find ways to support this. So say there's some degree of reluctance, not 100% enthusiasm, I would say, but just given where it was. But the Housing Authority has assured us that the landscaping and cleaning out the basement, finishing the basement are things within their capacity. So I welcome questions, or we can have David come up because he was there as well.
First,
If you'd like to hear from David.
First, let me just say, I want to say thank you to you all for acting quickly on this in the short notice that we asked, and it's appreciated. And then I see Mr. Golden had his hand up, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David, thank you for that comprehensive report of your meeting from earlier today. I wasn't able to watch it, and I was very glad to see that you were in the room here tonight. You answered one of my questions, but I'm still going to ask it anyways. So you said that we should do an audit when the project is complete. Is there any benefit to doing an audit before we expend any further monies on this property?
I will credit Al DiNardo for this suggestion, who was at our meeting. He said part of going forward in particular, we need to regain the trust of town meeting and the citizens of Plymouth. And I thought that was a very important, successful, useful suggestion, because there will be projects like this in the future, and understanding how this one played out when we're done would be useful to the larger community, we believe. So thank you, Al.
But you think it should be done after, not before?
Yes, after. Because we don't know what the final cost will be because of the final contingency thing.
Excellent. That's my next question.
Yeah.
Do you foresee any circumstances from what you folks saw where $140,000 won't get us there?
I'll tell you, we're worried about that, but that's where our challenge was about landscaping and the basement, were the two areas, just speaking for myself, that were, I'd say, disappointing. And we challenged the Housing Authority. Russ Shirley was there, as well as Chris and his associate, Greg McMahon. So we don't believe so, but again, right now, we're close to the finish. We're kind of 1 yard or the 6-inch line. And we want it finished. The units themselves are very attractive. I would say the units are not. It's not all high-scale granite countertops and things. It's kind of functional level, but it's not Cadillac finishes throughout, I would say. Functional.
For what we've expended, I think it should probably be. But you're leading well into all of my questions here tonight. So when do you think that this could be occupied?
We've been told, that was one of our challenges to them, the final work is 2 to 3 weeks out. Okay. They have a sign-up list. They've got candidates for it. These are subsidized apartments, which is different than just a typical affordable unit. So Chris might be in a better shape to answer that question. But it's not months out, it's weeks out.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a quick question. So would you be holding back money till the punch list is complete and everything's done?
They will. We
sure,
don't control the checkbook.
I should be talking to Chris about that, but that's a recommendation that they don't have an OPM, so that would be something that a project manager
and
would recommend.
one of the things I suggested was, until this was resolved, they're sitting on 2 bills to the general contractor. And one of my suggestions was hold back some from one of those 2 payments to cover, there was basement work. So they say there's holes in the floor and holes in the ceiling. Right. And again, we were told the contractor is doing, there's work in the basement that's incomplete. So I would, we would challenge the Housing Authority to sit on the money and be very careful in releasing it, because they want to get to certificate of occupancy. And as I say, the units themselves are pretty clear and nice polished floors and things.
Yeah, I saw the pictures. And one last thing, Mr. Chairman, could I hear from, I see some neighbors out there that have been lucky enough to meet them, and
Okay, before that, you want to hear from David? Or?
Oh, yeah, if David wants to say something. Always like hearing from David.
If you don't want to say something, but just, he's vice chair of the building committee.
I was trying real hard to maintain a low profile, but I've been called up. Reluctantly, we made the vote today. I say reluctantly because this is quite a project. Probably something that never should have been undertaken. But having said that, it is what it is now. We've got to deal with it. The units are nice, and I think a good effort was put forth by the Housing Authority and the various contractors. But as David said, the importance of a project manager can't be overstressed. We've been doing 2 fire stations, and we have Rick Pomeroy from Pomeroy Associates, who's our OPM. And he can anticipate a lot of problems because this is not his first project. Obviously, he's done a whole bunch of them. So that fact needs to be carried forth if such an undertaking ever happens again. I'm a little concerned, having been an excavating contractor, I'm a little concerned with the sewer work. I hope they can get it done for what it's estimated at, but there is an unknown here because when you dig into Oak Street, you're probably going to find an old 8-inch clay sewer pipe, which is very fragile, and if you go, it falls apart. So there could be a problem there. Let's hope there isn't. I think the project needs to be completed because of the subsidization factor. You know, as you well know, affordable housing is deemed by the state, and it uses the Boston area for its criteria. So affordable in Boston really isn't affordable in Plymouth. But subsidized housing, which is the Plymouth Housing Authority, the rent is determined by your income. So if you have low income, you pay a really low rent. That's beneficial to the people of Plymouth. And I think Chris said there were either 1,200 or 1,500 names on the list for these 3 units. So the demand is clearly there. I think if you, hypothetically, if you had the Housing Authority sell the building back to the town for $1, now you've got to put it out to bid because you're subject to 30B. So you've got to get 3 bids. You've got to take the highest bid. I don't know if you will recoup your money. I kind of doubt you will because 3 subsidized houses don't bring in as much money as 3 affordable units or even 3 full-scale market units. So I don't know if you would get your money back. But the important thing to remember is if it goes out of the Housing Authority's control, the subsidization factor leaves. So I think it's beneficial to complete the project. 2 to 3 weeks occupancy, I think that's optimistic, but clearly the building shouldn't sit for 6 or 7 months or 8 months to wait for a special town meeting in April or even the annual town meeting in April. It should be dealt with now. Other than that, what questions can I answer?
Mr. Canty?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions for both of our Davids. Well, both the Davids at that podium. We have a few Davids. So starting with Mr. Malaguti, so you mentioned the aspect of if you sold it, if we took it back for $1, gave it to a developer, that we wouldn't be able to recoup because of the cost associated with affordable units. But is that factoring in the fact that this is a project where we've already put $1,028,000 plus into it, and there's only 140 thereabouts of work left in? Because that's, to me, there's a big difference between trying to, if we had a DeLorean with a flux capacitor and we went back to 2019 and we went that route from the beginning, yeah, that would be more expensive and harder for those developers to recoup those costs, which is one of the reasons why, as you said, probably not something that we should have ever undertaken. We don't have that luxury and that opportunity. This is a situation where there's an estimate of 140. We put it out for 3 bids. We'd take the lowest, not the highest. We'd take the lowest of those 3 bids.
When you're selling, you have to take the highest.
But where there's only that limited amount of work left there, that's a very different equation than asking them to start the project over, rip everything out, and do it over again, wouldn't you say?
Well, that would determine on what you consider to be the minimum that you would accept. You'll never recoup the 1.4.
No, we never would. But if the objective is, right now, the objective from some is to complete the project for $140 more thousand dollars of either taxpayers' money or ARPA money that would then need to be subsidized. It's going to take money out of the pool that would otherwise be used for something else that the town needs.
Yep.
So either way, it's either directly or indirectly coming from taxpayers. So if we could instead shift those costs, if we could take the highest, we could take any bid to complete it, because we're just looking to accomplish the overall goal, not to, it's a very different situation than the town undertaking a project from the beginning as a public contractor, right?
But you're losing one factor,
And what would that be?
the subsidization.
Yes, I suppose, but the amount of money that we've already thrown at this, that subsidy it's a very expensive subsidy.
It is, except when you're one of those that needs the subsidization.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously.
You're absolutely right.
The people that benefit from it would get in either scenario, whether it were subsidized or whether it were traditional affordable housing, there'd still be a benefit being conferred to the immediate and future residents that would occupy the space.
Right. I can't disagree with you.
I appreciate that. That's good. That's comforting to hear. Hopefully I'll hear more of that. Now, Mr. Peck, I have a few questions for you, if I could. So you mentioned that, and Mr. Malaguti mentioned this too, this theme of a reluctant 4-1 vote. Both of you mentioned 4-1 being reluctant. You explained in some regards that reluctancy. Can you expand upon why you were reluctant to approve this particular project? Despite a 4-1 vote, which would suggest overwhelming, if not unanimous support?
Well, I'll say probably all five of us, even the one vote, I think it was principally, I mentioned the landscaping and mentioned the basement as two sort of cardinal things with an obvious, and I will say our no vote, our one vote against it was, saying, a proper project should include landscaping and finishing the building, on both floors. And she was worried about whether 140 is enough. But basically, it was more, I think, the perception that this is awful expensive for 3 units. I mean, I think it was more that, I would say that the town meeting perception that if we had known in 2019 or even 2021 that these were going to be, essentially $350,000 to $400,000 each for these tiny things, it probably wouldn't have passed. And,
Agreed.
And that is one of my recommendations, if you recall from a week ago, is that henceforth, there's need to be full disclosure with fully vetted estimates, including reasonable contingencies for these things, so that it's not bait and switch and sort of underestimate and then underestimate a second time. So I'd say that was common to all five of us.
And you mentioned that, you did mention that last week about it's better to have a fully vetted project with a fully operable contingency from the beginning, rather than, as you described it tonight, and I think last week as well, the bait and switch of, you're already, because then you have a sunk cost fallacy of, you've already put 475 in, what's another 381? You've already put 1,028,000, what's another 140?
Well, let me say this. Having been a contractor for 30 years and having worked for my cousins who were contractors, I worked for them 25 years. I started early. If you do the math, I'm 76, so that goes back to age 21. But there's some fault in the architect and there's some fault in the engineers, okay? And it's pointless now to say, you're responsible for this, you're responsible for that. It's over and done with. But there have been some deficiencies on both parts. So the blame needs to be spread around.
David, I'll blame anybody you bring in front of me for this. I've been voting against this since 2019. I plan on voting against it tonight. I agree with your statement that this is something we never should have undertaken. To me, it's clearly, as I said last time, as I said back in 2019, it's a historical preservation project masquerading as an affordable housing project. I don't have any problem with the historical preservation there. We could have used it as a meeting space, like the Little Red Schoolhouse. We chose not to do that. I'm not saying we have to sell it on the market, turn it into condos like we were doing 15 years ago, or turn into apartments like we're doing now. But the cost per unit here is astronomical. But Mr. Peck, in terms of this bait and switch, I mean, you've already alluded to the fact that you don't think that the 140 is necessarily sufficient. And Mr. Malaguti has said, I hope they can get it done for 140. So how do we have any level of certainty that if we approve this third estimate, this third amount, that there's not going to be some fourth amount later? And not only are we setting a precedent in terms of other projects can do this, because we said yes to Oak Street 3 separate times at least, but for this project itself, that, you know, we'll throw any amount of money to get this thing done. We don't care how much it costs. So could you expand on that?
I would, you know, we challenged the Housing Authority with that same question. So I say, right now, the only known bills that we have copies of that we have not been paid are like $70,000, 65 or 70, period. So that leaves $70,000 for unknowns.
Reimbursement.
Yeah. But the thing I'd say, we challenged the Housing Authority, and Chris is here, and I see Russ back there. They both assured us at the 11 o'clock meeting, should it go over the 140, there will be no more asks from the Housing Authority. I mean, that was, you know, we challenged them with that same question. And you could, you know, bring them up to this, you know, the microphone and have them make that same assurance, because we did ask that.
Well, do we have any, like this landscaping, do we have any estimations of the cost of that? Do we have, Mr. Malaguti brought up some issues he thinks with the sewer, the pipe work down there. Do you have any estimate on how much any of this is going to cost? Is that $70,000 realistic? Is it too much? Is it far too little?
Don't know. I did have to say that.
Okay.
Except, you know, as I said, they assured us more than once in our conversations that they would cover those, you know, finishing up and cleaning up the basement and the landscaping, because they landscape and take care of properties all around Plymouth, and in fact, Kingston and two other towns. So they're used to managing properties and landscaping and stuff. That's the assurance they gave us.
So another thing, Mr. Peck, that you talked about last week was the limited ability of the building committee to make any have any meaningful oversight, meaningful directives, meaningful changes, because you're coming in at past the 11th hour.
Correct.
Right? So to me, it's kind of like we're asking you to put lipstick on this pig, and then it's your lipstick that's out there. And, you know, I don't know if you want that. I don't know that it's fair to the building committee to hoist this around your necks because you're coming in at this time. But do you have any concerns about your ability to make any of these meaningful oversights? Not the reputation and the track record, but in terms of you are coming in at this late time, this late hour, and any of these suggestions, you know, as Mr. Malaguti said, it's kind of too late to be that critical because everything's already happened.
My interest, or our concern, is going forward. On this one, you know, we've looked at the paperwork, we looked at the bills, looked at contracts. We're offering our opinion and recommendation, and we'll say, again, reluctantly, but 4-1, including Joe Lally, who, you know, also toured last week and then made sure he made time to participate by Zoom today. So I guess I am not worried about the lipstick that are being painted on us, because we're doing the best we can to look at something at the 99th hour or the 99th minute.
Right.
And saying, and welcoming their assurance that this is it. This is the last time the Housing Authority is going to go to the town for this particular, that's what they're telling us.
Well, I mean, I've been told that before, so
Yeah.
I'm a little less willing to accept that this time. Okay. Can you tell me, last question, who was the one vote that voted against?
It was Megan Vale Marble.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
John?
So I got to ask you a question. You look formidable up there. Did I look that formidable when I sat next to you? Thanks.
David, could you just give us a quick synopsis of how should this have worked? How do you work with the OPM to ensure, I think for the last decade or more, that each of the projects that you've been engaged with has either come in under budget or on budget? What is,
Well,
how does that happen? Who do you?
I'll say the way it happens, because most projects are larger scale that we've been involved in. In public procurement laws, I think it's Chapter 149, I'm not sure, require an OPM on any project over $1.5 million. This project obviously is under, maybe creeping toward that, but it's underneath it. But different departments can hire an OPM by the hour or by the day. The school department hired, Rick Pomeroy's company on an hourly basis as extra set of eyes on the Nathaniel Morton School. And so, Pomeroy's associates came to every job meeting, looked over the budgets, looked over the bills. So even smaller projects that are under $1.5 million, I think the budget should include an allowance for OPMs. And because there are, Pomeroy's here, but there's 3 or 4 others who've worked with the town over the last 10 years. But I think it's important, we're volunteers, and so we can't expect the building committee to be OPMs. All we do is work with the professionals and try to bring our own expertise to it. But a paid OPM is there full time. And you can do it on smaller projects, just making sure you have a budget for it.
I think you should also realize, I don't think you'll ever see another project like this again. I think the Housing Authority has had it up to here. But they are somewhat autonomous because they are basically an offshoot of a federal agency. So there is some autonomy there. And if they do undertake another project like this, which I seriously doubt, then there needs to be some ground rules set up front.
Absolutely. David, you took the words. So David Peck just mentioned how, procurement laws, anything over 1.5 million need an OPM?
Yeah.
I don't know if we can craft a local policy, but something has to change going forward, because as much as David Malaguti says this will never happen again, it's going to happen again. And, it's a great suggestion from Mr. DiNardo. We have to glean as much information from this as possible and be able to access it and study it, in the future when this is going to come up again inevitably. The audit, who does a rough cost, and where does that money come from? That's something the town manager gets involved in?
See, you're going back now in your time machine.
I don't have a DeLorean.
Yeah, you'd have to start from the very beginning and establish that. But I don't think you'll see this happen again. This was the worst case scenario. This was Symes House 2.0 times 2. Just a lot of issues here. So I don't think you'll see it happen again.
But to John's point, and I was going to, wait in afterwards before we go forward with any more projects that require construction, I would ask that the building committee with the staff put together a policy or a punch list, whatever you want to call it, that yet yous actually go through, and it doesn't even hit this desk until all that's met in your recommendations, whether it be including audit and included the project manager, because, this stuff happens, so I'm not going to sit here and air dirty laundry. I mean, if we want to do that, we can talk about Water Street, okay? I mean, no matter how many architects and engineers you have in construction, anybody that understands construction, this stuff happens. By no way am I saying that this is right, because I wasn't here for this one either, but it's on the desk now.
Yeah, and if I could just add one more thing that impressed me. At our meeting today, the direct neighbor, this Phyllis Ferreira, came, and she reminded the group that the neighborhood welcomes this project. They didn't want a developer to buy it, knock it down, and put 20 apartments there. They said, we like that building, we like the design that's emerged, but this had neighborhood support. And this woman came to our meeting, our posted meeting, so she could say, this is good, we like it. So that's just another good aspect about the project.
Mhm. Thank you. Charlie?
And David, to that point, I don't think you want to see a Little Red Schoolhouse with meetings every night and cars coming and going, and that's why I wanted to bring you up. I knew you were in favor because I've talked to you. I just want to make sure you still are. So I saw a project. I'm concerned is the landscaping, the outside of that building, the landscape. And I was on Standish Ave, and there was a property that's fairly new, big structure, and it's the barest looking, it's awful. And it just brings down the whole, and that's a great neighborhood. And it brings down the neighborhood. And how did that get by our boards? The planning, or, it's duplex, big structure. And it just brought down, I was telling my wife, this brings the whole neighborhood down. I never really noticed it before, and I would hate to see that Oak Street bring down your neighborhood, because you guys, that's a great neighborhood, that Oak Street, it really is. So, and my feeling, and I'll wait till we make a motion and I'll for discussion, and I'll tell you how I feel. So, but anyway, thank you very much. Thanks, David, also for your effort too, doing this. Okay, and you're doing just what you're advising us. That's what your board's for, and your committee's for, and you're advising us, and you can advise the housing authority too. So you've done exactly what we asked you to do. Thank you.
Derek, what's our options here if the board so chooses to move forward funding this or not?
I think we have three options in front of us. The first option to fund this $140,000 would require town meeting action. There are two sources of funds that would require such action. That is, as we all know, CPC, which we've used in the past on this project. And then there's this Airbnb account that has been established that has approximate balance of about $110,000. So option one would be to reopen the warrant, close the warrant, place an article on the warrant for town meeting to vote an appropriation in any one of those two accounts. Well, you can use them, you can split them. The second option certainly is the more efficient option, and that would be to appropriate at a future select board meeting the sum of $140,000 using ARPA funds. The current balance right now is $203,000, so we'd have a small balance remaining after that. And then the third option has been mentioned in the past is to require the housing authority to return the property back to the town for $1, put that project out to bid. You could set a minimum bid amount. In preparation for this evening's meeting, I've talked to two different developers who have given me kind of ballpark indications on what a developer may bid, set for bid price. And then during that acquisition process, I would recommend that we require the developer to place an affordable housing restriction on that deed, so those 3 units remain as affordable units in perpetuity. So again, that would take some time. It would take some time to transfer it, and then that'll also require in the bid specs that the developer on its own source of funding would then finish the project. So the remaining components left in the project, that would be incumbent upon the developer to complete. And so in the terms of that, you could require the developer to have occupancy within a certain period of time as well, so that there wouldn't be too much of a delay on those units being occupied. So those are the 3 different options that we've come up with, but again, they all come with their challenges.
Back to the board.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I heard the town manager correctly, if there was going to be a vote, hypothetically, where 100% of the revenue would come from ARPA, that would have to be an agenda item at a future meeting.
That's correct.
Chris, did you want to say something? Please, come on.
Thank you, and I appreciate the building committee coming out and reviewing everything as well. Just want to make a couple points. I don't disagree. I think we've all kind of gone around this time and time again. The cost to develop these 3 units is astronomical, as Kevin put it. As he also mentioned, it's a historical preservation project masqueraded as housing. I don't think that was ever the intention. I think, as far as I know, it was always that objective, is to provide that subsidized housing. Because I remember when Mount Pleasant School went up, for a similar kind of thought process, it was going back and forth. So I think numbers were different at that time. It went to that private developer. But I think the biggest concept, other than what it has cost to put subsidized housing in, it's the subsidy factor. That is what the town needs. That is what our country needs. We're in this crisis. So it was not a financial play on how affordable can we make these units. Because a private developer would take those, call it affordable, but they're still profiting from that. The town potentially profited. They're not spending as much of their tax dollars to then convert this into housing, but you're not also then taking care of the need that we take care of every day. So I did print out a list of who I said we're going to stick to the elderly, local veterans. So right now on our current waiting lists, we have 1,327 local elders that are not have housing for subsidy. They will not go into any of those affordable projects. They do not qualify. They're low income. We have 187 veterans in that similar boat. So the housing that we're providing would not be able to be obtained by a private developer in this situation. So I cannot change what has happened. The money is astronomical, but the need for housing is there, and that's what we're providing. As far as some of the concerns of the landscaping, we have a full maintenance staff. We maintain our grounds. Some of the landscaping we can do ourselves. We also reach out to volunteers. We work with the corrections office. We can utilize their skills. We talk to the high schools. We try to utilize their things. So there's other things we can do to maintain that. But our objective was always maintain and preserve the building as best as possible for the neighbors in that sense, and keep it as a local elderly housing and meet those needs. But I assure you that housing will maintain it, keep it looking like the neighborhood, and be great neighbors for that. We have strict policies that, if our neighbors, if the people we house aren't complying or being courteous to the surroundings, then we have policies to correct that. So our objective, which has always been in our sight, to provide the subsidized housing for that community, I think that's what we're meeting. I can't disagree with the money. And a lot of what we talked about, if there was ever any future projects, things need to change, an OPM on the projects, certain things like that. But it's not like even if we go through this with a fine-tooth comb, we're not shaving hundreds of thousands of dollars off this project. 3 units would have never been affordable. Doing it as a public entity because of the prevailing wage. This happened during COVID. So there's so many things I could explain how it got to this number. Is crazy, but we procured it the way we've always procured all of our state and federal projects. We did everything to the book that we know how, but I think the oversight, the projected planning, the contingency planning, that's where this has ultimately fallen, because we didn't have our own funds to put towards it, so we needed supporting funds. So I think not having that proper projected planning is where we're here today. But I think the ultimate goal, the other goal, is providing that subsidized housing to our community, so.
Thank you. Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris, thanks for coming back again tonight.
Sure thing.
I'm sure you're excited to be here with us.
Always.
So you sent a letter to the Community Preservation Committee and copied, among others, the town manager
Yep.
And the select board. That was on August 2nd, correct?
Correct.
How much earlier than that did you know that you needed those additional monies?
So that came in, so the water main, we did, as David Peck spoke to, we did do that project, but the sewer main we just tapped into that, and that's what really put us over the fire alarm. So most of that stuff was relatively new within a month, weeks of that.
So like beginning of July?
Beginning of July,
Okay.
correct.
Derek, the town meeting warrant closed, I believe, on August 9th. Is that correct?
I believe that's the date, yes.
So Chris, at a minimum, you knew a week out because you contacted the CPC at that point before the warrant closed. And you're telling us now that you knew possibly a month prior to that you were going to need additional monies. You knew even before the town meeting warrant opened that you needed additional monies. Why didn't you guys file an application with CPC or file an article through town meeting?
Yeah. And I can just, myself saying, I was not aware of how the process works as far as requesting the funding. So in the timeline, I was not aware of myself. So it was really just unknowing the process leading to this point. You know, it's just was the directive of our board. We sat down, and that's when we requested, at the time, the other funds. I know Bill Cohen was big involved at the very beginning, so it was directed from other sources. I was not aware of the deadlines. If I was, I would have done it in a different manner.
Okay. Derek, a couple more questions. You laid out four kind of options for us for how we could move forward. Do you have a recommendation as to how we should best move forward?
Well, I mean, I try not to provide an opinion other than just information and facts. I do think again, the most efficient way is to provide ARPA funds, and you could take that vote at next week's meeting. However, for those board members who are worried about continuing to sink more money into this project, as I mentioned earlier, you could always go out to bid. I can tell you that public subsidized housing projects are inefficient. In fact, Town Council had a conversation with our CPA rep in Boston today, who actually recommends against using CPC funds for public affordable housing projects. In fact, they recommend using CPC funds to subsidize private affordable housing projects because of the need to not have to go out to procurement, not have to do public bidding, and so they're able to avoid prevailing wage laws, things of that nature. So it seems like it's always more efficient to provide funds to private developers to create affordable housing in communities for those reasons. So, I think those are the options in front of you this evening.
Correct. And if we were to use ARPA funding for this, are there any other projects that you and your team have that would be coming before us in the near future for that money?
We always have a need. There are other projects that if money were to be available, that we would bring forward to the board, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Canty, then Mr. Mahoney.
Derek, can you, in the event that we do, for reasons I'll never fully understand, but in the event that we do put this on for next week to give ARPA money, or with the idea of potentially giving ARPA money, could you provide a list of currently known projects, either that people are looking at ARPA funds already, as well as other known capital needs that we have that would fit within that funding? Because my thought is, yes, is it efficient to send it to use ARPA, sure, it's quicker, we don't need town meeting action, all that good stuff. But the problem is that you're taking from a pool of money that would go to an already existing need in the community, a known need, and putting it here, and then you're going to have to fill that thing that would have been funded in whole or in part with ARPA funds with some other funding source. So is that something we could get in the event that that's where we go?
So we're happy to provide two different lists. So one is a list of current ARPA projects that we're in active discussion about, trying to get cost estimates for some of these projects. We can provide that list. In addition to that list, we can provide the capital improvement plan, which, as this board knows, we have millions of dollars worth of capital improvement needs.
Thank you.
Mr. Mahoney?
Mr. Chairman, I'm double booked, so I have to leave soon and go somewhere else. But having said that, I'm certainly a proponent, if you're amenable to it, to having an agenda item for next week to consider a vote to put this to bed using ARPA funds. Obviously, that would be contingent on Mr. Peck and his committee staying involved until the end of this, and it'd also be contingent on the recommendation from Mr. Donato to have a full and complete audit once the project is finally put to bed.
Is that a motion?
Possibly next week. Okay. Well, we need an agenda item next week, correct? Yes, that'll be.
Good, yeah.
I just want to speak quick on that, the ARPA. I'm all for the ARPA money. We get it done quickly. That's what that money is for. It's just for projects like this, for infrastructure and water sewer. We don't have to go to the residential taxes, which CPA money is residential tax money. This is money that the federal government gave us, and we still have some available. And let's get this done. And I just want to say that I was against this in the beginning, but we got a project that's 95% done in a neighborhood. Let's get it done. We have residents that need it. This isn't just affordable. This is subsidized housing. This is not, it's better than affordable for these folks that are going to be able to use it. So we keep talking about, everybody talks about it, affordable housing. I listen to these debates on these candidates and everything is affordable housing. Let's start doing something about it. Let's get it done. I keep hearing about it. It's like economic development. I say that every time, and I'm frustrated because it's taken a lot longer for me to get some projects done that I want to see happen. But this is something, I get on the board. This started before I get on the board, but ever since I get on the board, there's been problems that we've had to fix. Some of them were controversial. We've had to do some things that some people didn't like. But we had to do it, and I voted to do certain things, and it was controversial. But in the end, it's proven to be right. Maybe not 100%, but most of the things that we've done. And so you got to, there's going to be some people that are against this $1 million plus that we're spending on these units, but I feel comfortable voting for this because it's the right thing to do. It really is. We're going to be helping people. And that's what our job is here. And we're not asking the folks at home to pay for this. This is the federal government gave us this money. So that's what I want to see, how this is utilized. And we're learning by mistakes. There'll be no other projects. We won't give any funding if there's not an OPM on a project. We all heard that tonight. There's got to be contingencies. Everything that our advisory, the building committee, who I respect a lot, everything that, and I've seen them in action when we were doing the garage, and that wasn't perfect either, but it's all part of construction. There's issues and problems. I probably shouldn't have brought that up, but anyway, it's I'm all for it. Let's put it on the agenda. Hopefully we get this done next week. So anyway, thank you. Thanks everybody for your time.
Thank you.
Just for the record, I'm supporting the article next week also. Mr. Canty?
So I, for the record, will not support the ARPA motion next week. I wouldn't support funding it this week. I think that, and I apologize if I'm a little unclear. I've Bell's palsy. The left side of my face is paralyzed, but that's okay. It's temporary, and I'll be fine. So the issue that I have with using ARPA money, that it's not residential tax money, is that it is, though. It's money that you're taking that we could use to fund an existing need that wouldn't have to be funded by taxpayers.
Mr. Canty, with all due respect, we're not going to sit here and argue about, what we could, who's paying these taxes. Let's just stick to either you support it or you don't.
I don't.
And I respect it. Thank you.
I don't support it for
So
that
let's
reason.
move on.
And I think we can learn from these mistakes, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
without throwing more money at this project.
It's duly noted. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay. Anyone wishing to speak under public comment?
Ginny Davis, Precinct 4, Rep. I just want to bring us back a little history about the Plymouth Redevelopment Authority. 22 years ago, when Joan Pimentel was the director, it was a very different climate, and the federal government gave them a lot of money, and they built Cherry Hill, and I'm not sure if it was Castle Hill or Prince Street, but, they did some amazing projects. And she was wonderful, but she also was able to get federal funding. We don't get that federal funding anymore. So what has happened is the Plymouth Redevelopment Authority became more of custodial and maintenance. And I won't go into what we've learned from this. We've all learned from this. But from the beginning, I have always voted for this project because it was for poor people and veterans. The affordable housing that we call affordable and we give to builders is not affordable. It's not affordable for young physical therapists that still have all debts, nurses, firemen, teachers, people who may manage a restaurant or whatever. Our middle class is out, and the poor people, we know what's happening there. So we've learned from these errors, and I appreciate the time that you've all taken to discuss it and ask questions and involve the building committee. But I voted for this. I'd vote for it again. And as far as the landscaping, I think if they have a crew, we'll be able to find them shrubs and trees. Maybe we can even get some volunteer stuff into the landscaping. Thank you.
Just identify yourself for the record and make sure the green light's on, please.
Hi, Christine Sampson. I've been living at 139, 145 Summer Street since 1963, so that tells you my age. Oak Street School is my backyard. We fought for Oak Street when we wanted to keep it as a kindergarten, and it got through. And then when the doors were closed for Oak Street, the biggest concern was a developer would come in, tear it down, and put some monstrosity and take everything that we have and the quaintness of the neighborhood and everything and just destroy it. I don't remember what year it was when we came down, but we came, there was myself, Phyllis, and another friend, and came in front of the selectmen to start this process of looking at this for being housing for, not even the word affordable. We wanted to keep the quaintness, the quietness, and the integrity of the building intact and allow someone to live there. There would be nothing of greater pleasure than when I walk the street every night to see someone's light on and know that they're calling that home.
Thank you.
Steve Lyden, Precinct 17. I don't know what you guys are going to do, but I have concerns. The Red Brook project, $4 million, 26 units. Town meeting gave $3 million to house 26 homeless families in the industrial park, and over $1 million for 3 units, to me, is astronomical. Opera funds, to me, is taxpayers' money. Even though it was given to us by the state, it's going to pay for things that need to get done. I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know what to do. I just know that this this can't happen again. I mean, this is, I can't understand how we go from 26 units for 4 million, 62 units for 4 million, 26 units for 3 million, and, 3 dinky units, for over $1 million. I don't know. And the landscaping, I know this year they had problems with Castle Hill keeping up on the landscaping. There was complaints from some of the residents. So, that's going to have to be watched as far as I'm concerned. That's got to make sure it gets done and it's maintained. Good luck to you guys, because I'm telling you, this is not an easy decision. And I'm not happy about what went on here, so thank you.
Anyone else? Come on up.
Phyllis Ferrara. I am the closest abutter to the Oak Street School. I mean, probably 10 feet between my property and theirs. I totally support this. I'm a taxpayer too, and I feel that the cost is crazy, but we are where we are. And from here, I think it needs to be finished. And all the concern about landscaping, the landscaping to me is so much less important than if a developer buys that property and puts 10 units on it. That would be detrimental to the neighborhood. It's too congested. We already have terrible parking and traffic issues. If that property goes to a developer, if they're going to make any money on it, they can't have just those 3 units. They're going to want to put something else. And the neighborhood has welcomed this use of the property because it is a good fit. We're an aging neighborhood. I mean, we're all getting older. We welcome this use of it. We don't want this to be like what's next to Reliable Cleaners. We don't want that in our neighborhood. It's not a good fit. It's just not okay. And I'm confident that they will take care of the landscaping and everything. I already got their card to make sure they shovel the sidewalk and everything else. But, we welcome that. It's a good fit for our neighborhood, and I hope that you will find a way to complete this project at this point. I mean, if it was only just beginning and you knew all this beforehand, I could see, but we are where we are, and there's no going back. So I hope that you will support it.
Come on up, Russ.
Obviously, I've been involved in this project for 3 years. If this project had happened 3 years ago...
Identify yourself for the record. I mean, I know who you are.
My name is Russell Shirley. I'm Precinct 11. I'm the chairman of the Housing Authority. We've been working on this project for 3 years. We started the project 3 years ago. We built a handicap ramp to the back door to make the building accessible. We were very sensitive to the wants and the needs of the neighbors. We talked to all of them that we could. We waved them down. We talked to them. They were very gracious to us. They were very happy that the change, that the building from the outside was going to look like it did before. We really attempted to be a good fit within the neighborhood and be a good neighbor. And we hope that we get your support. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on the public comment? There's no online, right, Jade? No. Okay. Select board discussion, new business? Letters? Old business? Okay, come on up.
My name is Scott Hokinson from Precinct 4, and I wear many hats in this neighborhood, but today I'm here as Jacoby Hokinson's dad. He's a Plymouth North football player. Last Friday, the captains of Plymouth North came to my office, and I provided Jade with a short video from them. I don't know if we're able to show it, but I'll talk while she pulls that up. Friday Night Lights has been taken away. I have sons. I have 25, 22, and 21-year-old children who went through COVID during the worst time, senior and junior in high schools. And I think so much was taken from them in addition to academics. And I think their high school experience was ruined. And our Plymouth North football team has 3 home games that are supposed to be Friday night lights. It's the one time that the kids come together in the fall, including homecoming, where they're together for a super positive reason. The student council does theme nights. One of their home games happens to be on Yom Kippur, so respectfully, that game's going to be at 3:30 in the afternoon, and rightfully so. So that leaves them with only 3 night home games, one of which is on September 13th. I have a list of facts here. Testing has been, basically, Plymouth was put on a high risk for triple E, I believe on August 3rd, and testing's been going on consistently. The only positive test at Plymouth, I believe, was to a horse, and I will promise this board that no horse will play or be in the stands on Friday the 13th. All positive results are posted on mass.gov. The risk level on Massachusetts.gov, the risk level can only go up. They're never going to bring it down. So these kids have no opportunity to see the risk level go down on the reporting, because once it's set there through the first frost. And the first frost will be after the last home game. Thousands of people around town. The town of Plymouth is not shut down between 7 and 9 p.m. But Plymouth North will be on these 3 very important dates, and we just don't think that's correct. Middleborough has had the same level of heightened risk, and they've decided to keep their Friday night lights in place. Town of Oxford, Worcester County, a number of other counties have had the same level and decided to move forward with it. One of the biggest issues is parents that have invested an incredible amount of money, time, and effort over the years won't be able to see their kids play because they'll be at work paying for club sports. But also the student fans who are soccer players, band members, cheerleaders. The band, the cheer, the football players, they work so hard to be able to be on display and show their skills at these Friday Night Lights, and that they're incredible experiences if we get to be there. And none of their friends who are on soccer teams and other team sports will be able to be there. The Massachusetts Athletic Association does a great job of kind of leaving Friday Night Lights to Friday Night Lights. And well-intentioned, this recommendation, I think, was made thoughtfully, but not with enough thought with what ramifications it's going to have for these, especially the seniors, the senior parents, the captains, and everybody else, and my son, Jacoby Hokinson. So I don't know, Jade, if we can play the video here.
So unfortunately, I'm not able to pull up TikTok
okay, gotcha.
due to the platform it's on, but if you want to pull it up on your
audio?
phone and just play the audio, I think that's fine.
All right, so I had the kids come to my office on Sunday, and I produced this video for them. But this is...
I'm Colin Reynolds from Plymouth North High School, and we're here to talk about the ban on Friday Night Lights. My name is TJ Cohen from Plymouth North High School, and we understand the last positive test was on August 13th, and there hasn't been one since, and we also sprayed on August 23rd.
I'm Kevin Marrera from Plymouth North High School, and Middleborough has the same high risk as us, but they have decided to keep Friday Night Lights. My name is Wade Erskine from Plymouth North. With support of our coaches and 500 students for our school, they have signed to keep Friday Night Lights back in Plymouth. I'm Nick Reardon from Plymouth North High School. The entire town of Plymouth has not shut down from the hours of 7 to 9, and we do not think Friday Night Lights should shut down either.
On behalf of the 500 people who signed the petition, these lights keep Friday Night Lights.
500 people have signed. The coaches support it. The spraying happened in August, and according to WCVB, crews took to the air and ground overnight to kill mosquitoes in Plymouth and Worcester counties after a man was exposed to triple E a week and a half ago. This is on August 27th. From Laura McGowan, a spokesperson for Clark. Almost instantly does the mosquito control product work. What we will see over time is we'll notice populations going down after successful treatment. So we're here to ask, especially for opening night, September 13th, to keep Friday nights open, and I don't know what other procedure we go through from here.
Derek?
I'm happy to respond if you'd like me to. So let me start by saying that the health officials, working with state officials and the school department, did not take this decision lightly. I was in that meeting. Having been a father who lost his son lost his senior season of football during the pandemic, I get everything that you just described, Scott. But although on the surface, one would think that the town is not at risk, there are a lot of factors that come into this decision. So, yes, there was one horse, and then there was a second horse, and then there was a human, all infected in the town of Plymouth by mosquitoes that are carrying Triple E. You're right. For whatever reason, the risk level had not changed even after the identification of the human case of Triple E. But we do know, based upon those 3 cases and mosquito surveillance that's been conducted all summer long, that there are mosquitoes in this community that are carrying the deadly disease. That being said, we did have a meeting with state officials yesterday. We asked questions on why they didn't move the community from high to critical, even though there was a human case. They didn't have a response for that. They did commit to us, because I asked the question of whether or not we'll be able to move out of this risk level and return the playing activities back to normal. They committed that they would have another conference call with us on September 16th to revisit the data that they're collecting and the science. So there's a lot of things that, as you know, would play into that decision making, and the activity of adult mosquitoes would certainly be one of them. Additional cases of humans or animals would be another. Additional mosquito pools that test positive for the virus would be another factor. So weather will also play a factor into this decision. So I can say with certainty that September 13th will not change, but I am committed to working with local and state officials to look at the science and the data so that we can return activities back to normal.
Do you have any advice for us procedurally on what we need to do? Because 9/26 is homecoming as well. So if we lose the 9/13 argument, I'll go home and shake my fist at the sky. But what else do we need to do to keep this moving forward, to make sure we ask for 9/26 and October 18th is senior night? So those are the 3 days. We have opening night, homecoming, and senior night, the only 3 games we have.
Right. So again, I already have on my calendar to meet with state officials on the 16th. So I think at that point, hopefully the data moves in our direction, that we could just take different precautions than we are taking now. But again, the data will drive that decision.
Okay. I appreciate your update. And do we have, is that data available to us to check on as we go? Or is it not? Because Sue had found some.
Yeah, so I do know the state posts their mosquito surveillance data online.
Okay.
They do identify animals that test positive in communities. They choose not to identify specific cases of humans that tested positive to try to protect patient confidentiality. So in that case, they try to keep it at a county level.
So last bit, I sell insurance for a living, so I get your concern about the risk, but waivers signed by everybody in attendance doesn't push you over the fence? Come on, Derek.
That's something that we certainly can take into consideration.
For the 13th or not for the 13th?
So the other thing, though,
I appreciate you.
Just if I could, Mr. Chairman, just think about this for a minute.
Yeah.
And let's forget about high school sports and just focus on youth sports. So the youth football programs practice at night, right? So if the town puts out a notice that we know we have mosquitoes carrying this virus. We know people are at risk. However, we're going to keep the fields open. Parents have to, they're at a decision point. Do they want to push their children onto the football field to practice, knowing their children are at risk? And some will say yes. I probably would have said yes, given my son playing football. Others will say no. So think of that youth football program where a certain percentage of that team will not participate because those parents don't want their children to go at risk. It degrades the season by doing it that way versus taking probably more of a draconian approach, saying we're just not going to allow it. So then it forces all parents, all families to have to reschedule their activities in a safer manner. So it's not so much about giving folks the opportunity to sign a waiver. It's putting everybody on the same playing field so that those folks that don't want to sign the waiver, their children can still participate.
So my only, anticipating that, we did have the kids, I believe we have 100% for the participants, waiver. I don't think we've done the cheerleaders and the band yet. But I also suggested we also need to do the other team, the visiting teams coming in as well, because they deserve the same opportunity to be protected as well. So what I'm here to promise is that we will do that effort, in assistance of trying to protect, I guess, September 26th and October 18th, whatever that means.
Say let's
I mean, obviously, if the science helps us anyway, great, but we really appreciate everybody's consideration, because I think I saw it personally with one of my sons, the effects of COVID were far more than just his grades, and I think the high school experience is enhanced by things like this. And these kids work so hard, and it's not just the football players, cheerleaders, band, and the parents who invested to get the kids to this level. I appreciate it, and time and effort and whatever else. Any other questions for me? Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Anything under old business? Motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Blutta, second by Mr. Golden. Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.